What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And today I wanted to address the Chris Jones contract situation. So as we sit here on July 22nd, 2023, Chris Jones has still not been extended. And this comes after just about every single big-time defensive tackle has gotten a huge extension this offseason. The list goes on. Daron Payne of Washington, Dexter Lawrence of the New York Giants, Quinnen Williams of the New York Jets, Jeffrey Simmons of the Tennessee Titans. So many good defensive tackles have gotten extended this offseason, and a lot of them have gotten paid a ton of money. And yet, Chris Jones hasn't. He still hasn't been extended when it was a no-brainer that he should be extended this offseason. And a lot of people are kind of getting worried that we're this late into the offseason. In fact, a couple days ago, we hit the, I think, 3-year mark of when Chris Jones signed his last extension for 4 years, $85 million, I believe it was, with the Chiefs. And a lot of people were saying, don't freak out. Chris Jones, the last time he got an extension, didn't even get paid until July. And now we're even past that point of when he got extended last time around. So is everything going okay, or is this a cause for concern? Let's talk about it. So, of course, seeing all these other guys get extended that aren't Chris Jones has people feeling a little queasy because, these types of situations can hurt the Chiefs, kind of similar to when they had to trade Tyreek Hill. They initially wanted to keep him, and they were going to extend Tyreek Hill, and then Devontae Adams got that huge deal, and the wide receiver market was just absolutely insane that year to the point where it made Tyreek Hill unaffordable for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know a lot of people are saying, come on, Vij, hurry up, get Chris Jones done. We don't want anything to happen to Chris Jones where we can't keep him anymore. Can we hurry up and get this done? But the way that the Chiefs are playing this is completely normal, and I'm here to tell you guys that Chris Jones will be extended, and he will remain in Kansas City as long as the Chiefs want him here. And here's why. So it was reported at the beginning of this offseason, when the talks of a Chris Jones extension initially began, that Chris Jones wanted to be at least the second highest paid defensive tackle, and that came from Nate Taylor of The Athletic, actually. But here's the part that people are kind of forgetting when it comes to extending Chris Jones and making him the second highest paid defensive tackle, is with how many defensive tackles that were slated to get paid this offseason and have now gotten paid. If you had extended Chris Jones earlier on, the next defensive tackle to get paid would have just jumped Chris Jones again. And Chris Jones deserves to be the second highest paid defensive tackle. He deserves his money. And people also aren't mentioning the fact that Chris Jones and his agent are smart enough to know that they want to wait and see what these other guys get paid before agreeing to any sort of contract. And Quinnen Williams, he just got extended the other day. I believe it was 4 years, $94 million. And Quinnen Williams is probably the last big-name defensive tackle before Chris Jones to get extended this offseason. But now that he was finally extended, it lets the Chiefs know where they need to be with Chris Jones, because Quinnen Williams immediately became the second highest paid defensive tackle in the league after signing that deal. But Chris Jones deserves to and wants to be the second highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL behind Aaron Donald, who of course just makes loads more than anybody else. But even Chris Jones is realistic enough to know that he's not going to get paid as much as Aaron Donald, nor does he probably deserve as much as Aaron Donald. Not saying that he doesn't deserve a ton of money and he wasn't better than Aaron Donald last year even, but just, the Rams gave him so much money, and that was also kind of a nice gesture by the Rams, saying, here, Aaron Donald, take all this money for being one of the best defensive players of all time. And though I love Chris Jones, and I do believe he was better than Aaron Donald last year, Chris Jones is not one of the best defensive players of all time. But while we're talking about Chris Jones versus Aaron Donald real quick, I should say that Chris Jones absolutely deserved the Defensive Player of the Year last season, because if you look at Aaron Donald's numbers from his last Defensive Player of the Year award and then compare them to Chris Jones's this past season, if Aaron Donald won Defensive Player of the Year then why didn't Chris Jones win it this past season? But anyway, back to the main topic. I don't think the Chiefs have any intention of letting go of Chris Jones or not extending him like they did with Tyreek Hill. I know the Tyreek Hill thing still has people a little queasy over what's going to happen with Chris Jones because, again, the team wasn't initially intending to trade Tyreek Hill, but I think this was their plan all along. I think they were always going to wait and see how the market played out first before deciding what to give Chris Jones, because they do want to, do right by him and make him the second highest paid defensive tackle in all of the NFL. He deserves that. He is the anchor of this defense. I think the Chiefs have been preparing for this. They've been putting money aside for this. They've been smart financially over the past couple of off seasons, and I think that's because that they knew they had some big bills coming up to pay, and one of them was Chris Jones, and Chris Jones is a player that they would like to keep. Sure, you have your differing scenarios sometimes like Tyreek Hill, where he was just going to be too expensive and it was a better roster building move to trade him and get all those draft picks and stuff. And I know I've seen people before on social media dream about the draft capital that the Chiefs could get for Chris Jones. But the difference between Tyreek Hill and Chris Jones is that Tyreek Hill plays wide receiver, which you can find a lot of productive wide receivers. But for Chris Jones, it's really hard to find an elite pass rushing defensive tackle as good as Chris Jones. And if you trade Chris Jones, you're just going to spend the next 10 years looking for another Chris Jones. He's too valuable to this team. He's essentially the Mahomes of the defense. If you took Chris Jones off that defensive line, the pass rush takes a massive step back. It gets a lot worse. That entire defense probably gets a lot worse. And you're probably talking about taking yourself out of Super Bowl contention. Whereas if you took Tyreek Hill off of the offense last year like you did, you're still viewed as a Super Bowl contender. And also, I think the Chiefs, just like everyone else, is trying to stack as many blue chip players as possible. You want more blue chip players than you want just a bunch of guys. And so I think people get a little bit confused sometimes, a little bit too obsessed with like the New England Patriots and how they built their championship teams. And people always say, oh, they never paid anybody. They always let guys go and they were able to stay in contention. And that's fine and good for the Patriots. But I think people are forgetting that you're still trying to keep as many blue chip players as possible. The Tyreek Hill situation was just unique, and that was a player that they did have to let go of. But that doesn't mean every single time you get one of those generational talents that you have to be looking to sell high on them as soon as possible. And I already made a video on this whole thing about how trading Chris Jones is stupid and it's different from the Tyreek Hill situation. I already did that song and dance, so I'm not going to go through the entire thing again, but you guys get the gist. Ultimately, I don't think there's any reason to be worried about Chris Jones. He even tweeted earlier this offseason that he will never play for another franchise besides the Chiefs in his career. And I know players say those types of things a lot and then they go on to play for another team, but I have confidence that Chris Jones and the Chiefs are going to get something done and that this is exactly the way they planned it out from the very beginning. And so that's my take, but I want to hear from you guys. Are you worried at all about a Chris Jones extension? Did listening to my video help you feel better about it? Let me know down in the comments. But with all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And I will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs!